Welcome back. So this time around we're going to talk about health effects associated with asbestos products. Now sometimes you'll hear the term ACM, asbestos containing materials, and I want you to just have that in the back of your head so that if we're talking asbestos and then somebody goes to ACM, you'll know what they're talking about. You know, they're still on the subject. I've spent some time in the health safety engineering business, as I mentioned earlier. And in that business, we often talk about different ways for contaminants or hazardous materials to get into the body. There is inhalation, which means it goes in through your nose and mouth, gets into your lungs. That's one pathway. Then you have ingestion, which basically means somebody is eating or drinking the material, and then it gets into your system that way, through the stomach, through the intestines, where it's absorbed and it goes in through the body. You know, for example, if you're talking about mercury in fish, then that's going to be an ingestion sort of a pathway. You know, the mercury goes, somebody eats the fish with the mercury, goes in the stomach, and then you got mercury through your system. That's ingestion. Then you've got absorption. And I have an example of that. You know, most of us did very stupid things as children, and in my case I was actually in college and I had access to some mercury. This was a little bottle, I don't know, about 2 inches wide and 3 or 4 inches high, and it was big enough that I could actually stick my finger in this mercury and feel the pushback because mercury is so heavy. And I thought that was cool to have, you know, stick my finger in this liquid. Didn't take me very long before I started to taste a metal type of a taste on my tongue, and I knew I'd been an idiot. You know, first off, mercury is a poison, and so I had actually absorbed mercury through my skin, where it had gotten into my circulatory system and eventually resulted in a metal taste on my tongue. That's what absorption is. So in this case, where we have absorption and inhalation and ingestion, asbestos is going to be an inhalation thing. Those little fibers are going to lodge themselves within the small parts of your lungs, and they're just going to stay there, and they're going to irritate the lung, and they're going to irritate the lung, and they're going to be there for the rest of your life because those fibers are durable and they don't break down and they don't go away. So you can imagine one fiber doing that to your lungs, and then if you imagine tens of thousands of those fibers doing that to your lungs, you begin to understand why the lungs start to have diseases associated with asbestos. According to EPA, you have about 10,000 people die per year from asbestos-related causes. Another important factor is that we have what's called a latency period. I referred to this earlier. Latency is a concept where, you know, the question might be, well, how long, once I've breathed in an asbestos particle that causes lung cancer, how long is it going to take for that asbestos particle in my lungs to actually cause the lung cancer? And the answer to that is anywhere from 10 to 50 years, which to me means you never know. It could happen, it could not happen, you just never know. So let's say, for example, that somebody is a miner. They're in an asbestos mine, maybe they're 20 years old and they're breathing in all this asbestos. How long do they have? Well, anywhere from 10 to 50 years. So based on that math, they could die when they're 30 or they could die when they're 70. 10,000 people die per year. You've got latency up to 50 years. Now, the kinds of diseases, there's two primary ones that happen with asbestos. One of them is mesothelioma. This is actually a lung cancer, and 2,600 people die per year from mesothelioma. Of the people who are found to have it, let's say that I were to walk into my doctor today and he diagnoses mesothelioma. Based on the averages, I have about a year left to live. Only 8% make it 5 years. This is you know, if you've got that mesothelioma, your expectancy isn't good. If you happen to be in stage 1, your average expectancy is about almost 2 years. And if you're in stage 4, you got about 1 year left, again, based on the averages. Then, besides mesothelioma, you've got asbestosis. Now, the difference between the two is that mesothelioma is cancer. Asbestosis is just that your lungs are trash. You can imagine for those asbestos miners where they have all these little fibers that are in their lungs, and they've settled there over a career, and all those fibers are just causing havoc with the lungs in this miner. And what's happening is you're getting scarring of those lung tissues. And imagine it in these tens of thousands of small locations, you don't have much left of your lungs. But yeah, there is no cure for that. Typically, when you've got asbestosis, it's going to be a chrysotile thing. Because again, that's the one that's a little bit less hazardous than the amosite and the crock. Then you can have some other types of asbestos-related cancers. You can actually have lung cancer directly, which is different than mesothelioma. You can have ovarian cancer, and then laryngeal cancer, cancer of the larynx. And you know, it's easy to understand how you could have cancer here if you're breathing all of those asbestos particles.